Well, welcome, Dr. Mary Claire Haver. How are you? Welcome to the Girlfriend Doctor Show.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Well, you've been through a very challenging launch of your book. How amazing to run out of books and to really, again, bringing this information on women's health and menopause and how we have to do things differently into the public's eye. How important it is. I would love for you to share us some of your story because you and I both trained traditional OBGYN. I
Right.
trained at Emory and you trained at
UT, University of
UT.
Texas in Galveston. Yeah.
And that's where you are now in Galveston.
I live here. Yes.
Very, very cool. So tell us a little bit about your journey into this.
So let's take it back to about 2017, 2016. I was in my mid to late 40s and traditional OB-GYN in academic practice. So I split my time between running in the residency program, seeing all the private patients at the hospital, delivering everyone, all of the residents, the faculty, the local people in our community. Really enjoyed my practice, love patient care, had great teams that I work with. But as you can probably recognize, administrative burden with all the changes at the hospital level were really starting to take their toll. And, didn't know how much longer I could kind of hang in that situation because call was pretty tough. I was probably out 3 nights a week, and then working the next day in my late 40s, which was tough. So at the same time, my oldest surviving brother, had a brother who died at 19 from leukemia. My next brother had been suffering from HIV and hepatitis, and he was kind of in the late stages of liver failure. And I was kind of rushing back to Louisiana, where I'm from, to go help take care of him, or whenever he'd have to get admitted for esophageal varices or whatever. So that was kind of taking its toll. I also recognized, all right, I've been on birth control pills for a very long time. I've had polycystic ovarian syndrome. So that was treating my disease, treating my symptoms. And I was doing really well on them, but, recognize late 40s, probably should get off and kind of see where I'm at as far as menopause. So I talked to my practitioner, got off the pill. And at the same time, my brother had a stroke and died.
Oh,
And so I kind of forgot that I got off the pill. Like my whole world went cattywampus.
yeah.
I was bereavement leave, went home, did his hospice care, really just went into a deep depression, and took me a few months. Like I was barely functional. I was just enough. I could get up and go to work and take care of patients, and came home and I
And
had
plus, you're a mom and a wife at
yeah,
the
I had
same
no
time.
wife and no mommy left, like thank God my husband picked up the slack, he's been a really good partner. And he just recognized she is not doing well. And, my coping mechanisms were I would like get home, I'd cry all the way home from the office and then to dry my tears so my kids wouldn't see me being so upset, and then go straight to the pantry and I would just start inhaling whatever processed carbohydrates I had available. And then I'd wash that down with a glass of wine. And so, a few months of that led to some weight gain, expectedly. So then once the grief and the fog lifted, here I was, probably 20 pounds over my normal weight. And, as my patients have been complaining of weight gain for years. Like I was aging with my patients. We had babies together. We were going through menopause together. And so I said, all right, time to do all the things I told my patients to do, work out more, eat less. And it didn't work.
Right,
So
right. And I'm sure you heard this. My patients would come in and say, Dr. Ann, I've gained 5, 10, and 20 pounds without doing anything different. Here you were doing some things different. Number one, hormonal withdrawal from being off birth control pills, huge amount of, I'm so sorry for your loss. I mean, that is, it's just the culmination of just
it was the
trauma.
perfect
An
storm for me.
perfect storm. And then, I don't know how old your girls are, but I was like, mom's going through menopause and daughters in their puberty
Teenagers.
and teenage years. That's another perfect storm. So you've had a couple of perfect storms colliding here at the same time. And plus what we were taught, how we were trained to treat the stage. I mean, it's different. So please, yes, go ahead, continue.
So I, took my own advice and doubled down at the gym. We turned our garage into a little workout area. I was down there sometimes twice a day. I was calorically restricting I kept cutting back more. It's got to work. It's got to work. It's got to work. Like, I'm a scientist. Like, this is what they told me had to be the thing. And I kept going back to the books and reading, what am I missing? What am I missing? And I'd lose a couple of pounds. Yeah. But then it would just bounce right back on, like the usual tricks that I used to do to get back into a pair of jeans, or, postpartum weight loss. Nothing was working. So I was getting up in the middle of the night, Anna, to go to the bathroom and weigh myself. I mean, I was literally becoming obsessed. Then was like, hey, okay, I'm glad you're not crying every day, but this weight thing, like, I love you. You look beautiful. I don't care. But like, you're a scientist, figure this out. Like, you've told the kids for years, if what you're doing is not working, you need to find a new path. And he said, you need to figure this out. So I worked at a big academic institution at the time, called the PhD nutrition department. I delivered all their babies and said, what is going on in menopause? I can't figure this out. And the weight gain for me and most of my patients was my abdomen. It wasn't anywhere else. I didn't have new hips or new, I just had a gut that I had never had before. So they gave me a bunch of medical articles to read, randomized control studies looking at inflammation, fasting, nutrition. And then I kind of pulled in what's going on with menopause and inflammation, and just shocked myself by how much data was out there that I had no idea. I even went back, since we're both OB-GYN, I get board cert, I recertify every year by reading the articles recommended. I went back to the Green Journal and I pulled several years and I looked for menopause articles, and there's like almost none.
Yeah.
And this year we had the one from Circulation Magazine about heart disease and menopause. And I was screaming. I couldn't believe we had a menopause centric article on our, board review, board certification exam. I was like,
I know, right? It is just about time, but it's really important to understand, like, this research has been out there. It doesn't make it into our Green Journal, which is what OBGYNs read. I mean, that's the compilation of research in women's health. I mean, in 2014, there was a study that looked at women who had had a hysterectomy or their ovaries removed had increased risk of diabetes. And again, like, is it because they had their ovaries removed and their hysterectomy, or was the underlying insulin resistance, which caused the hormone imbalance, causing the need for the hysterectomy and their ovarian dysfunction, right? So looking at these things, but the wrong conclusions were even made. Right. And so I think that's the powerful piece, is like looking at this, and then MRI imaging of a woman's brain. That is new over the last decade.
The University of Arizona, that blew my mind. The 20% decrease in the function,
gluconeogenesis. It's our brains are starving for fuel because of the hormonal transition. I thought that was good. Now, the perfect storm too here with the gut and this gut waste gain is also the consequence of the birth control pills for many years affecting the gut microbiome. And that research is in its paucity too. Do you feel that had a role in this?
I always felt like, I haven't seen that data yet, and I need to go back and find it. But, I always felt like I did really, really well on the birth control pill. I had no problem. I actually felt better. My PCOS was, my testosterone levels were like in the hundreds, and so I always felt better on it. So I
leveled you out. Yeah.
Attributed to that. Never had. Yeah. So, it's just, I got off and was immediately menopausal, so that the birth control pill was giving me estrogen and progesterone and masking my menopausal symptoms at the time.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I think there's going to be so much more information that definitely comes out with the ovarian suppression from the birth control pills and the progestins. We see that now. We looked at it closely in menopausal women. And so that'll bring us into some of that. We'll come back to hormone therapy. I like to say hormone replenishment versus replacement. So that's kind of like my tagline, hormone replenishment, not replacement. So we'll talk about hormone replenishment, approach in a little bit, how we do that. So, okay. So now you're reading the research, recognizing you're down the rabbit hole, because you're
and a few themes kept popping up. One was, fasting, and not so much for weight loss. I stopped thinking about it after the research in terms of weight loss, but more in terms of health gain and lowering inflammation. And so there was some great and, really, really nice, elegant research from Mark Mattson from the NIH on neurodegeneration or neurodegenerative disease. So Alzheimer's and dementia, and fasting, and how fasting seemed to lower the neuroinflammatory levels. And I thought, okay, well, fasting, let me give this a try and see what happens. And then, just tons of information on anti-inflammatory nutrition. So I realized there was a huge gap
And
in my
longevity. We would say, okay, the longevity piece with
longevity.
fasting.
So I decided, okay, I don't know enough. I don't know what I don't know. And how I even reached back out to the new PhD people and I said, hey, should I get a master's in nutrition? I have a bachelor's and, what can I do? And so they started poking around and said, hey, there's a program at Tulane in New Orleans. And they're calling it culinary medicine, but it's really a medical nutrition course. And it's made for physicians, practitioners, pharmacists, to give you a good, solid background in medical nutrition and how to talk to your patients about it. So I was like, I'm in. So got permission from my boss, enrolled in the course. Took me about 18 months to get through it. Had to take a board exam or certification exam, not a board exam. And it was some of the best I've learned, education that I've ever had. And I thought, God, if every medical student could go through this, it would just change medicine altogether, utilizing that nutrition key. So through all of that, I kind of put the program was for me. I just wanted to get this off. And then talk to my patients. Do y'all want to try? Here's my little protocol. Y'all want to do it? Yeah, sure. And then they started telling their girlfriends, and then my girlfriends did it. And then I shared it on social media on Facebook, and it exploded. So then everybody I knew on Facebook, which was like a couple thousand people, wanted to try it. And it just kind of like your program did, it kind of grew from there. Decided to take it to an online course so we could share it larger, and I could, pay the bills with it. And, after a couple of years, we had almost 100,000 students enrolled in the program. But what for me began on social media as a discussion around nutrition and menopause just exploded into all things menopause. And so that's been really, really fun. It's just all I do is educate and talk and teach people how to advocate for themselves and, and how to talk to your doctor about this. And here's articles you can actually hand your doctor in support of you, being a candidate for certain therapies, and, reframing menopause care into a toolbox rather than just one thing fits all. Here's your magic cure. Here's your elixir. Here's your whatever. And this is going to fix all your problems. And as you know, we have to do everything to be healthy.
It's multiple angles. And I want you to talk about your protocol, the Galveston diet, and your new book, The Galveston Diet. And I think the big thing is I always tell our clients that menopause is mandatory and natural, suffering is optional. It is no more a disease state than puberty. And we don't want to suppress it. We don't want to suppress a woman's transition, nor would we want to suppress pubertal transition, but we know we can make it healthy or it can be unhealthy. And I've had 4 daughters, right? So I am big on hormonal balance at all ages. And there's no time that's too soon to start. So those early symptoms of, for example, PMS, PCOS, the regular cycles. I mean, I love to emphasize that those are survival genes. Those are powerful leadership genes. Those aren't fat genes, infertility genes, acne genes, right? We want to put a twist on what the genetics are that we can optimize to empower us versus the epigenetic changes through chemicals and pharma and standard lifestyle and blue light and high carb food and all that stuff that work against our genetic expression. So to honor our expression, the same thing in this menopause transition, having gone through it twice, now finally through it at age 56, it's like soon to be 57. I like to say years young. It is that it really is that empowerment stage of life that is like no other in our life. And we want to claim it as women. So you claiming it, getting into that clarity, I mean, we can't get there without bumping into ketosis. Because again, if the brain's starving for glucose for fuel because of impaired gluconeogenesis due to the hormone changes, right? We're suppressed. We're in that fog. And I love hearing it, that great, the weight comes off, but it's I feel like myself again. The fog has
Right.
lifted. I'm
That's
smiling for no reason, right?
right. You've given me
That's
my life
it.
back is like the best thing I've ever, and that's
Mm,
what we're hearing. I'm
yep.
getting very little feedback about weight loss. I'm not, that's not our focus. We're like, weight loss might be a pleasant side effect, but we're here to give you your life back, your health back, with
Yep.
the focus of nutrition. And, we'll discuss everything. We talk about everything in the book.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so talk about what does a day in the life of the Galveston diet look
Okay.
like, and how do you walk people through that?
So there's three components I touched on earlier. One is intermittent fasting, really not a great way to lose weight. Multiple studies are coming to show that, but what it can do for you as far as autophagy and longevity and lowering insulin levels and keeping your glucose stable and, lowering inflammation markers is legion if done correctly. And, the window may be different for everyone. We're biodiverse individuals and, there's no cookie cutter that's going to work for you. We want you to ease into it and kind of find that window that's going to work the best for you.
Yeah, I found the same thing. We started at 13, like bumping into 13-hour intervals. Fasting is a muscle. So then like 16, I have found that for most people, again, everyone's individual, but number one, you've got to change things up. Don't push the fasting too long, too often. That becomes a stress on your body. And for our audience, you guys can reference back the amazing Girlfriend Doctor shows with Dr. Mindy Pelz and her book Fast Like a Girl, and Cynthia Thurlow, her book Intermittent Fasting for Women. I mean, so many good resources, and guess we're finding the same thing, right? We're finding the same thing that supports this. But I found that women do better, and we really can alternate, but when we break fast by 10, 11 a.m. and stop eating by 6 to 7 a.m., and that's kind of a general gestalt for my group when we're doing the keto-green lifestyle. But again, push it longer, occasionally have a shorter interval, and listen to what your body is telling you.
Exactly. Listen to your body. So that's kind of the first thing. The second is we do a lot of teaching around basic anti-inflammatory nutrition, focusing on, food and the why. Like I teach a lot about what compounds are in foods that promote, that decrease inflammation, how the gut microbiome feeds into it, and it's pretty basic. It's nothing that would shock you, leafy greens and fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and, pretty much if it came from, if it's naturally made, then more than likely we're supposed to be eating it in larger amounts. So, and then we talk about things that can be inflammatory for some people, for all people. And these are the things that should be, I don't want to say never ever have it, but we're human. We get into social situations where someone puts something in front of us and, but making the choices more often than not that, are more anti-inflammatory. There's a great, there's a inflammation scale that was put together by the American Academy of Nutrition, and they use it when they were doing studies about inflammation and nutrition. So we took it and we kind of simplified it and made it into like a little quiz. And so it's a back of the envelope kind of, what did you eat in the last 24 hours? And it's in the book and it's on our website. It's our inflammation quiz. And you can kind of grade where you are. And so things that are pro-inflammatory, you get a minus, and anti-inflammatory, you get a plus, and we give you a score at the end, and it kind of tells you where you fell. And so it's kind of eye-opening because I can't tell you how many people come to me and they say, I'm eating healthy. And I tell you 10 years ago, I would have said the same thing until I went back to school to learn about nutrition.
Right.
Just because
And
the label
sugar.
says healthy does not mean it's healthy.
Right.
So, the inflammation quiz has been a really powerful tool for our students, to help them be like, whoa, like at that eye-opening moment, maybe my choices, what I thought was healthy, maybe wasn't really serving me.
So what are some of your big no foods?
Anything artificial or that's going to disrupt the gut microbiome. So a lot of the artificial colors, artificial flavors, some of the nitrites, the additives, the sulfites, things that are added for shelf life, the saturated, they've even taken them off the market. They were so dangerous.
Seed oils, all the seed oils, safflower oil,
hydrolyzed fats and things, I'm always like, be careful with packaging, be careful with things in bags and boxes. I'm not saying never, but that should not be the root, the main source of your food. You most likely you're going to underserve you, it's not going to serve you for health.
Very
And
true.
third component is what we call fuel refocusing, where we talk a lot about macro and micronutrients. We do a deep dive into what micronutrients, at least most women seem to be deficient in, and why. Things like vitamin D and magnesium. We talk about, optimal levels of that and where that comes from. We talk about, we have ratios of macronutrients that we, shoot for when you are trying to lose weight. And then we shift them a little bit over when we're just maintaining and just trying to be healthy. So, and we talk about sugar addictions and tricks to break that. I bring in a lot of stories of other people's menopause stories. So I felt like the reader could see themselves, in the book and their own struggles. We talk about insulin, cortisol, leptin, ghrelin, hormone PPY, neuropeptide, GLP-1, and how all of those work to get us, to satisfy our hunger and make our satiety, and, where and how we store fat and how all those things work together and how they change through our menopause journey.
Yeah, no, I love that. And where does dairy fall into your program?
So dairy is optional. If you have a lactose allergy or an allergy, if you have a
sensitivity
intolerance or a protein to milk allergy, allergy to milk protein, then that's not for you. You should know that by now. You can't have that. It's going to do terrible things to you. But for the rest,
I would say if you're not getting results, take it out. I mean, none of my recipes include dairy because it's such a highly.
Alcohol falls in the same thing. If it's not serving you, I'm not saying you can never have alcohol, but it might be hindering your progress. There's a lot of sugar there. People tend to eat more and make decisions they wouldn't have made had they not had alcohol in their system. So, dairy is optional. And if in our recipes, it's usually an accoutrement, like shave a little Parmesan on something or sprinkle it's a flavor rather than being a main source of something.
That sounds great. Now, how did being trained as an OBGYN and knowing through the hormone prescribing, how has that shifted for you during your own journey?
I grew up, so I finished my training in 2002, the year that the WHI was coming out, and, hormone therapy of any form got vilified. And
so for our audience, that Women's Health Initiative trial was published in 2002, just after a few years, because it showed a higher increased risk of breast cancer. They stopped the entire trial. Many of you probably remember news headlines, and it said that it is like that estrogen and they called it progesterone, but it's progestin, synthetic progestins, were very dangerous. And many women were stopped from their hormone therapy at that time. And it's really, we're still trying to recover from the misinformation of that study.
So, from what I've read, what I've read the French study looking at different progestins. And so
that was Dr. Fournier's study. Now that's a huge study because it was initially, he did 50,000, then 80,000, then 100,000 multi-people study. And that research was early published by then.
So typically, in my clinic, so when I'm prescribing to patients, I will stick with, I'm trying to give them back what their ovaries used to make, if they're a good candidate, and this is something that they want to try. So I'm going with estradiol, and I'm going to go with progesterone. And that's pretty much all I do. I don't do Premarin. I don't do synthetic progestins. I pretty much just try to stick to what the ovaries, getting as close to what the ovaries used to make. But I always do it with a caveat of, nothing ever is going to work better for you than your 25-year-old ovaries. And I can't give you those back. This is just okay. We can't ignore the rest of it, what
number one is diet and lifestyle. Number one is the best thing I can do for your ovaries.
Open our toolbox, nutrition and exercise, we don't exercise to be thin. We exercise to be strong, strong muscles and bones with resistance training and a strong heart with our cardio. And then, by the way, the brain gets involved, and, it works great. It lubricates everything. So, I read something the other day, just something, but you've not seen it in print. And then you're just light bulb moment goes off. And it was talking about aging. And our gender is the only one that has accelerated aging in one particular organ. And our ovaries age faster than anything else in our body. And why is that? And does that have to happen? We don't have an analogous thing happening in the male gender. People with those gonads, they die with them. They can reproduce until their testosterone drops off at about 40, and it really levels out, for the rest of their life. And for us, it's like, why does this happen? And why is there so much variation? Why it's completely, under the normal curve, not to say it's normal, not to say it's non-pathologic, but for someone between 45 and 55 to go through menopause, and the 45-year-old is going to have much higher health risks than the 55-year-old, if they're identical twins,
Yeah.
and why are we not researching this? Why is this not on the forefront in order to keep us as healthy for as long as possible?
Yeah, and it's so true. Ovarian aging is a marker of longevity. And so everything we can do to reverse it, like reversing early menopause. And then it's so important to understand, I'm sure you've seen this in people that have gone through your program. And so when they go through this program, I know from my keto-green community in my own life, reversing my early menopause, is that you've just rejuvenated your ovaries. So how is that, right? I mean, it is a significant phenomenon. So we know food, lifestyle, inflammation, stress, all of that can affect our aging either positively or negatively. And ovarian function is so powerful. And I love hearing stories about women, like it's been 2 years since they've had their period, right? And all of a sudden their period starts back up normally. I'm like, I could never write anything on a prescription pad would have worked so well and worked for your longevity, and I think that's so powerful, because when it happened to me, that early menopause at 39 years old, and I was like, this is your death sentence. I mean, because you're not going to be able to have another child, you're early menopause, and that's it, right? And you're not given that. There was nothing that had the possibility of reversing this. And, my story is that I went on to reverse it, through my journey, my travel, my, herbal medicine and the different lifestyle things that I figured out. But it was, and naturally conceived at age 41, the child I was told I would never be able to have. I mean, that just doesn't happen. And so, but then able to replicate that in my patients over and over and over again. And that's the thing. And I love to say your diagnosis is not your destiny, right? Your diagnosis isn't your destiny. And menopause, they think, oh, well, I'm menopause, and that's it. And it doesn't, depends on the reason for the cessation of your period, or for your period stopping, or for your ovarian challenges. Like why aren't we having that expression? And I think doing things in that whole concept of why I like to say hormone replenishment versus replacement, I never want to suppress what your ovaries are doing naturally, because by doing so, we're also suppressing DHEA, which is the precursor to estrogen and testosterone. And that is, that's the ovaries and the testes are a big part of the manufacture of DHEA. And we know, based on research, that even the postmenopausal ovary is still producing some hormones, right? Because women who have had their ovaries retained after age 65, that study was published in the 1990s, had 50% less. Yeah, 50% less risk of less cardiovascular disease. That's
I just
powerful.
read that, God, in the last 3 or 4 months, and I was absolutely floored, because someone on social media asked me, well, my doctor wants to remove my ovaries, says I don't really need them. I'm 49. I'll be menopausal soon. Should I have them removed? And I almost responded, well, and I said, let me look and see if anything else has been published. Let me just be sure. And I absolutely was blown away, because I did not know about that study.
Yeah, it's powerful. It's powerful. When we talk about the ovaries have a rapid have that transitional decline, but there's a combination of things going on during that time period too. At any rate, so I'm part of that field that I was trained that way. If you're over age 35 or 40 and you're getting a hysterectomy, may as well reduce your risk of ovarian cancer by taking out your ovaries.
Right.
That's how we were trained.
Patients are being quoted that to this day.
Yep. Yeah. So So again, we keep learning and moving forward and do everything we can to create empowerment. So what next, Marie Claire? What's next for you?
So I have my clinic. So I was in traditional OB-GYN. Then I moved to become a hospitalist, and then COVID hit. So I really was a hospitalist for 3 years during COVID. And then once things calmed down, I decided, I really just want to focus on menopause care. So it's been a little over a year that I opened just a menopause specific clinic. And
That's
it
awesome.
has been the most amazing thing. I don't do surgery. I don't deliver babies. I'm never getting called or paged away. I just, I don't have to go anywhere on the weekend. I'm just like, it is my dream practice, and it has been amazing. So my next thing is, so many practitioners have reached out to me and wanting to know, how do you do this? Is it something I could do? Is to develop some kind of a program to teach other people how we take care of menopausal women in Mary Claire Wellness. So that we can, I don't have a space available to see me, and people fly in, which I think is sad, that you can't find someone to take care of you in your hometown.
Yep.
That you have to drive or fly to go find someone who will listen to you and give you a reasonable treatment plan.
Yep. No, I think that is so powerful. And honestly, the more the merrier. I love doing physician and clinic coaching. I love I've created a certification program, created some teaching around, for me, it's the keto-green and hormone replenishment plans. But like, I see over and over again how physicians and the staff, right? And the coaches and the practitioners, they just like have been craving this information. So I'm so glad to hear you're doing it, and and continue. I'm here to support you in any way. I'm really happy to know you, and I thank you. For our audience, check out Marie Claire. Marie, will you please share your website and
it's galvestondiet.com. It's galvestondiet.com. And then on TikTok,
the Galveston Diet, or just Galveston Diet?
galvestondiet.com.
Okay.
Yeah. And on TikTok, and Instagram, it's Dr. Mary Claire, Dr. Mary Claire. Okay. It's Mary, not Marie. My mom Americanized my grandmother's French name.
No, I love it. I love it. I keep wanting to say Marie Claire. My
mom's
name was Claire. Love that name. Love that name. So thank you everyone for listening. I will be right back in a minute. In the meantime, please check out Dr. Mary Claire Haver's book, The Galveston Diet, available anywhere books are sold. And I will be right back. I think what we find now is that, especially as more women physicians are going through menopause themselves. I mean, when I went through medical school in the early 1990s, I was one of 15 females out of a class of 115 medical students. So women were the minority. When I did my residency at that time, we were almost 50-50. It was about 60% male, 40% female in my residency class of OBGYN. So all of us are going through menopause right now, right? So this is what we'll hope to see, is that more and more female physicians go through menopause, and what we've been told isn't exactly making us happier, more joyful, more empowered in our body, more energetic. Then we've got to go on to the next step, right? We've got to do the next thing and figure out what's going on. And often we are in our solo world, right? We don't know outside what our education was or clinical practice was until we're forced to learn, as I was forced to learn, many years ago now, over 25 years ago now. So it's so important to learn, and to also check in with yourself. What resonates with you? What resonates truth? What's your next right step? What do you need to play with now? What do you need to find? And for me, it just lights me up when other physicians are, finding the same things, or finding that, diet and lifestyle overpowers prescription medication. I do want to say that I think we do have to pay attention to the research on chronic ovarian suppression with birth control pills and the chemicals that are in them, the progestins. I did a great interview in the past with Dr. Jolene Brighton. That's another one. If you have questions around this, to please reference her work. And also Dr. Lara Bryden from Australia, who wrote the Period Repair Manual, and an excellent resource as well. So I thank you guys for being with me today and to being part on this journey. It's been fun talking with Mary Claire. and fun talking with you about diet and hormone and menopause. Let me know what questions you have. I know you have questions, and I always want to bring you the content that supports you. So email my team, say you've got a suggestion for another episode or a topic that you'd like to hear about here on the Girlfriend Doctor Show. I definitely want to hear from you. And I thank you for your reviews. Your reviews mean the world to me. We want to boost our reviews on Spotify. So if you can pop over to Spotify, find the Girlfriend Doctor Show, and leave me a 5-star review. I love it. Thank you. And I'd be very, very grateful. You guys, till next time. Thanks for being here. This is the intro for this podcast. Going through menopause is a journey. It is a journey into the second spring of our life, as the Japanese like to say, use the word konenki, which literally means second spring. That's what I want this to be for you. I want the rest of our life to feel like the second spring, right? To feel like the second spring. We don't have to feel like once we're 50, we're now in the winter of our lives. And I don't want to feel that. And the way I would ask you to conceptualize this is, how does your spirit feel? How young is your spiritual energy? And write down 3 numbers. What is your chronologic age? And what's your energetic age? Like, how's your spirit feeling? Does it still have that childlike youthfulness, that curiosity, that interest, that playfulness? I mean, how old is that? How is your spirit age? And the third is, emotionally. Emotionally, where do you feel? We want to be wise and slow to anger, right? We want to know be able to resonate with what's important. And I think thinking right now about the serenity prayer, God give me the strength to, let me look it up real quick. Okay. All right. The serenity prayer is, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I love this. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think that's so powerful. And that's the wisdom of aging. And then to maintain our curiosity, to maintain our, I've got to figure this out. I'm on my journey. So today in the Girlfriend Doctor Show, I'm bringing to you another OBGYN. Her name is Mary Claire Haver. You may have seen her on TikTok. She's really focused on menopause. Her platform is around the Galveston diet, a diet to create when in 2019, she was struggling in her own menopausal journey. And she has created a tremendous social media following around this and now published her best-selling book, The Galveston Diet. So I'm excited to bring her here for this open, honest conversation. Let me introduce her to you. Here we go.